Well, if you look deeper into yesterday's budget and you look at what the SANDF got, it's a very slight increase in the amount of money it gets. In fact, that increase is below inflation. In other words, in real terms, the military is going to have less money in this financial year than it did last year, just as that deployment in the DRC starts. And you would have seen perhaps the narrative that the minister refers to there is the suggestion from many, many people that our military is not getting enough air support, and particularly attack helicopters to do their mission. Dean Wingrin is an aviation and defence journalist. Dean, good afternoon to you. So if we look at the numbers, how bad is it? How tough is it going to be for the SANDF?
Well, hello, Stephen. Thank you for having me. We've been saying that for a long time now that the South African National Defence Force is critically underfunded, and this is severely impacting its abilities to maintain and to carry out its various missions. Now, just a few days ago, the Commander-in-Chief, President Ramaphosa, mentioned just after the SONO speech that he was looking at an increase in the defence budget, and we were actually quite filled with hope that would actually come true. And I think the South African soldier will be severely disappointed at the budget that came out yesterday. And it's well over 1% down from previous years. And, although it's like 51.8 billion rand, sounds like a lot of money, over 65% of that just goes straight into cost of employment, as in the salaries of the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen and medics and so on. And that doesn't leave much behind for the rest of the forces. And when you look at, you mentioned the DRC, and South Africa's got a mission in Mozambique as well at the moment. The Mozambican mission costs about 850 million rand. The mission in the DRC is going to cost about 2.4 billion rand. Now, look at the budget yesterday, and the total force employment, which is these peacekeeping, peace-enforcing missions, plus internal and external exercises, everything is only just under 4 billion rand. And so there's this huge hole when you think that President Ramaphosa, in his notice to Parliament, said that the mission to the DRC will not come out of the Defence Forces budget. It will come out of somewhere else. And then the Minister of Finance says in his speech yesterday that actually this mission is unfunded. He doesn't know where the money is going to come from, but he'll look at it. And so although our soldiers are well trained, and I've got every faith in them, it's the support for those soldiers, it's equipment, it's prime mission equipment, it's systems. That's the problem and the concern is that they're old. Some of them are over 40 years old. They're in desperate need of replacement and upgrading, including attack helicopters, including transport helicopters, armored fighting vehicles, and so on. And there's just no money for just general maintenance and support, never mind replacement and upgrade.
So, does this mean, the way that this is panning out, and I accept what the minister says, she says that the soldiers are prepared, we mustn't run away. The sort of word that she used really was cowards, I suppose. But at the same time, if you don't have proper air cover, and I suppose it always comes down to attack helicopters in the DRC. We know that the M23 group is well resourced. We even know where those resources come from, don't we?
That's right.
Are we creating a situation where our soldiers are just being placed in danger unnecessarily?
Yes, I think the president should have thought longer and harder about this deployment. One of the reasons for the deployment is, from the funding side, is that the DRC said that they would partly fund this deployment. I believe that has not yet happened. And you cannot go and put troops in harm's way, as we have already seen. Harm has come to them. without making sure that you've got the funding is there to support them. And, it is really not the correct way of going about it, I don't believe.
We've also been underspending on defence for a very long time, and I understand this in a way, Dean, because I mean, if you're the government, you've got to spend 20% of your budget already on paying back debt. And then, if you look at social needs, the needs for people just to stay alive, so social grants are, let's call it another 20%. Then you've got wages, that's another sort of 30% perhaps. You really don't have much money. You've got to take the money from somewhere, and over time, it's the Defence Force that's been paying the price of that.
Exactly. I'm not saying that Defence Force must get money at the expense of other social programs. But when you look at the total GDP of South Africa, the current budget is about the defence budget is about 0.7% of South Africa's GDP. Now, when you look at the international norms, that's normally about 1.3 to 1.5%, and the NATO target is actually 2%. So South Africa's budget is actually, defense budget is actually going down. We were talking about missions to the DRC and Mozambique. That comes under the program called Force Employment, and that is actually 23% down than last year, which is is placing the Defence Force in a terrible predicament. The Air Force it's on its last legs. It just cannot sustain enough aircraft to support both internal and external deployments. The Navy is probably best left not to talk about. At best, they've probably got a few of the brand new inshore patrol vessels, but things are just not going well for them. And one other aspect is that of the reserve force. The Army cannot operate without access to its reserve force, as well as the Air Force and Navy and medics and so on. But the Army maintains about 15 companies of troops, about 2,700 troops defending South Africa's borders. It cannot do that without access to the reserve force members. Now, in the current budget, Treasury is allocated only about 1.9 million personnel days per year, which is about 0.4% up from last year. And already that is too little. Because when you think about 4 years ago, there was a budget for 3.3 million personnel days for the financial year. So you can really see how the Defence Force is shrinking and has less access to funds, yet the missions that it's been mandated to do is just increasing and increasing. And with a budget like it received yesterday, I'm afraid it's going to break, and it's going to break in a horrible way fairly soon.
Dean Wingrin, thank you. Aviation and Defence journalist. We've heard the view from him. You heard the view from the Minister a little earlier.